On agenda today, the new World Economic Forum survey on gender parity, which says that India has now fallen 10 ranks since the survey started in 2006. Here's the other shocker. Since last year, it has fallen 21 places. I'm going to say that again. India has fallen 21 places and now we are 108th in the world. 144 countries were surveyed in all. And just to give you some perspective, so comparison, countries like Bangladesh and China have done far, far better than us on gender parity. So if we look at it, we improved our position last year to 87 and then it fell again this year. And if you look at the specific sectors where we are worst off, it's in economic participation, in health and survival. Political empowerment, surprisingly, we're doing much better and we are ranked at number 15. Today, we're just going to look at these highlights of this survey and speak to our panelists. And there's, it's an all-women panel today. Speak to our panelists to figure out what is the reason for this huge gender gap which this survey exposes by the World Economic Forum. Let me just introduce our panelists over here. From the National Commission of Women, we have Lalita Kumaramangalam, chairperson. In studio, we have Avani Bansal, a lawyer. And we also have Anubhai Yadav, who teaches in Delhi University. We also hope to be joined by economist Dr. Brinda Jagirdar. First, if I can go across to Lalita Kumaramangalam, ma'am, these figures are very, very worrying. If you look at it, we are really, and just coming a day after we were all celebrating ease of business and how India's improved, it's a shocker to know that Russia is at number 71 and we are way behind in 108. Why do you think that is?
Thank you, Sunita, for having me on this show. But let me point out that my term as National Commission of Women chairperson is just over. But I'm still very happy to be able to, share whatever my experiences are over the last 26 years. I've been working with women since 1991. So let me tell you that one of the biggest reasons for the fact that women are not accounted for in our GDP is the fact that most women in India work in the unpaid or the unregulated sector, which is agriculture, which is unpaid home care. I'm not talking about what we call very summarily housewives. I'm talking about women who take care of elderly people at home, who do, all the housemaids who actually support women like you and me to go out to work and make a contribution. I'm talking about also the fact that women live in such a disempowered state in India that most of us don't even count ourselves on par with our male counterparts and don't know how to ask for pay parity. We don't ask. We just accept the fact that we get less pay and grumble about it. But the fact is that our mindsets are so patriarchal, and I'm not talking just about men in this country, also women, that we do not even today think of ourselves actually as contributing citizens. Every woman in this country, illiterate, poverty-stricken, whatever, unless she is there to run the house, to look after various sectors of the economy, especially the informal production economy, whether it's in textiles, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in agriculture and allied fields, fish farming, etc., aquaculture, etc., we do not even value our own contribution. The other thing is the lack of education and the fact that women own only 2% of resources in our country. We do an enormous amount of work, but we don't own any resources.
Ma'am, I just want to interrupt there.
We are counted as part of, productive resources of the country.
Ma'am, I just wanted to, make an intervention over there because I'm looking at the figures for educational attainment. And that's actually where I see that the parity is the lowest. In fact, there's almost parity in, enrollment in primary education, and secondary education.
Gender parity in terms of education, I think middle and lower and maybe even some up to an extent in tertiary education has gone up.
There is a gap in literacy rate.
But we still have a long way to go even there.
Yeah. But if you look at the indicators over here, it seems that the worst off, and that's where I wanted, you talked about, Lalita Kumaramangalam, you talked about how women are not asking for equal pay in India. But Dr.
We don't know how to ask for it.
Yeah, okay. So, Dr. Jagitar, if I can just go across to you, help us understand why in the indices which relate to economic parity, why is that the worst sector? And can you explain to us what happened in this past year which made us drop 20 places?
We have dropped 20 places at a time when half of the 144 countries in the sample have actually improved their position.
Yes.
And interestingly, we have improved our position in terms of two parameters. One is access to finance, and second is in secondary and primary education. But having said that, the performance on the other parameters is clearly dismal, as you point out. Now, interestingly, there are four parameters, that is education, health, workplace and politics. Now, where political representation is concerned, we are at 15 position.
Very well, yes.
Well, while in others we are dismally low. Now, this clearly shows that it's not enough just to have a person at the top leading, a woman leading the country, but the policies that we follow with regard to women's empowerment, with regard to children, with regard to nutrition, with regard to healthcare, all these are very important policies, and clearly they have not received the priority that it should have received. So what we need to do is not just focus on the big picture, on the macros, but we need to see what is happening to the people who are actually contributing to the economic upliftment, economic growth of the country. Now here it's important, talent acquisition, because talent is critical to growth. Now, how do you hire talent, how do you retain talent, and how do you promote talent? Now, that has to be given importance. So, clearly, if this is not done, then half the workforce, which is made up of women, they will drop out, and you will not have women in leadership positions, you will not have women who have economic independence and who are contributing to the economic growth of the country.
Okay.
So, that is where we are lacking, and we need to make sure that these programs which actually lead to better position for the women, economic power and social and economic status for the women.
Ma'am, when you talk about programs and what we need to do, I just want to point out, because I'm trying to understand what made us fall 20 places in this past year. Now, one of the things, we've seen lots of pro-women announcements being made. For instance, the government announcing greater increase in maternity pay. Yeah, Avani, you wanted to come in over here?
Yeah, the first thing I want to clarify is, if we just look at the numbers, India in 2006, when the first time report came out, was ranked 98 out of 115 countries.
Right.
We are now ranked 108 amongst 144 countries.
Okay.
Our score has actually improved.
Okay.
So let's just set this right first.
Okay, fine.
So it's not that we have fallen. If you look at the score, we're talking about an improvement.
Since last year?
No, since last year we have fallen.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
As compared to 2006, from 0.601, we've actually now improved to 0.669.
Okay.
However, the question is, we are still 108 amongst 144 countries.
Yeah.
And is India doing well? And what is
Bangladesh
India doing?
is at 47.
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's the question we need to be asking. What is India doing in 4 of these sectors, that is economic, education, health and political empowerment, which is what the report looks into? That's the question we need to be addressing.
So why do you think that is, Anubha Yadav?
Why do you think what is?
We've fallen, this decline.
I think, there's a complexity, and the complexity kind of vanishes when we only see numbers. So the larger climate that we are seeing around us today is a climate of, if I connect it to last 6 months also, we see that on one side we are seeing a heightened welfarean state where women are being and girls are being put in for education, put in for health programs, but within the paradigm of welfare state.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Beti Bachao.
Yes, and all of that, and all the programs that come from women and child welfare also.
Right.
Maternity Act that was changed last year.
Yes.
Yeah, so now we are constantly working within the framework of not citizenship as women, but women as patrons of the state. And I do think that we need to look, we need to have a relook at it. Women as patrons of the state is a very patriarchal structure, within which the rights discourse doesn't come.
Right.
And if the rights discourse doesn't come, where are you discoursing about labor force, labor rights, etc.? Especially for an economy where 90% of women are working in the informal sector. Your tanneries, your agricultural workers, your construction workers, your domestic work, all of it is unaddressed. And I'll tell you a very interesting data. If I only see the formal sector, I was reading a very interesting piece where it said that post 35, even in the white collar jobs, women start vanishing.
That's right, yeah. The women in the workforce has been disappearing for quite some time now, and it's not just this survey, even our own data suggests that.
So I want to ask, has there been any comprehensive study why women post 35, for example, FICCI, or any economic forum where a study has been conducted where we want to know, okay, why are women vanishing post 35 from the formal workforce? And that is the age when women reach a place where they can become decision makers.
Right.
You know, where I hire, where I lay down policy, and I can change the institution and the framework.
Right, and one of the sectors, perhaps in your sector, which is teaching, there are many women, but your sector, which is the legal framework, you see women are a huge minority. And do you see this 35, post 35 people dropping off the workforce in your sector as well?
I think the problem in our sector is different. There are not enough women to begin with who enter the workforce.
Yes.
Now, there are two things I want to say. To addressing your question, what is the problem? I see there are two major problems. One is in some sectors we don't have laws in place. And in second aspect, where we do have laws in place, nobody asks whether they're implemented or not. Let me begin with the second one.
Yeah.
We now know that there is sexual harassment at workplace that we have in India. But even though the government has not bothered to check whether it is actually being implemented or not, whether the corporations, the big corporations have actually set up these committees or not. And it will be shocking to know that most of the corporations have actually not put these mechanisms in place. Now, one of the factors, if you look at the report that has come out, Rwanda is a sub-Saharan African country.
Yeah.
That's doing very, very well. Now, India should be asking itself, what is it that Rwanda is doing that India is not? We are 108, Rwanda is second on the list.